Hey, what's up, Vox and Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocals of Cryptopsy, and you're listening to my podcast, Vox and Hops, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians to talk about their lives, music, and craft beer. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I most certainly did. Sadly, my vacation is over and I'm back at work, but that's life. My spotlight on Unique Leader Records has been extended until July 12th. I love Unique Leader Records so much that I had to add an extra week to this spotlight. So until July 12th, you can go to the Unique Leader indie merch store and check out all of the sick stuff they have up there. They have a bunch of great merch. They have all of the pre-orders for some excellent new releases which are coming out in the next few weeks. And you can save 10% by using the promo code Vox&Hops, that's VOXANDHOPS, when you are checking out. You should do it because, as I said, there's a bunch of great pre-orders up there from some amazing bands, some of whom I had the pleasure of playing throughout some of my previous episodes, and you should absolutely do it. Support extreme music, support Unique Leader Records. On today's episode, I'm with Benji Graham of Lesser Glow. Here it is, Vox and Hops, episode number 161.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm with Benji Graham, one of the guitarists of Lesser Glow. Super stoked to be with you. Thank you so much for taking some time to hang out with me. We got into contact because I put your new record, which just dropped via Pelagic Records, Nullity, as my album of the week, and that's how we started chit-chatting, and I asked if you guys would like to be on the podcast, and you guys said yes, so I'm stoked to have you. How are you guys doing? How are you coping with all the madness that is happening in the world right now?
Yeah, that's a lot. Well, yeah, thanks for having me on, too. Thanks for picking our album, also. It was very cool. It was kind of a bit of a crapshoot, like just feeling out, putting it out during these times. Just, there's so much kind of, disconnect. It's like even the decision, we didn't make it while we were all in the same room together. It's been a lot of stuff like this. So we're very thankful for the reception that's been getting so far, definitely this included. So yeah, with your question, we've been coping. We're doing it. I think the same way that everyone is. It's a weird time. You got to get creative to find ways to connect with people, to find ways to get your artistic outlet and your creativity going. Sometimes it's a little hard to motivate, and obviously if you're not in the same room with all the same people that you create with, that adds an extra little layer. But I think we're getting by. I mean, if there's one thing that I can say to be pretty frank about, it's like if you are in the music industry, or you play in bands, or you work gigs, which we all do. We all actively tour as crew when we're not playing and work at venues and stuff. I think everybody knows how to eat shit and get through it. It's just something that you have to do. At one point, you're just you're scraping by, or you're putting your funds together on tour to get to the next place, or you're trying to piece together gigs because you got home from a tour and now you need work. It's just I feel lucky that it's a group of people that are all pretty resilient. So it's we all kind of keep each other, going a bit, I guess, as a band can do and should do. But yeah, I feel lucky to be in a music world where I feel like you can probably attest to it too. It's how to take some punches and then probably move on instead of throw your hands up.
We wouldn't have gotten this far if we just gave up, right?
That is very true. That is extremely true. So, I mean, it sucks. It's a weird time. There's a lot of hardships in the world, and I think people are dealing with it the way they're supposed to, which is with music and frustration and civil revolt and things like that. It's all the right things that should be happening during these times, I feel like.
Yes, and shout out to For the Nomads charity. I don't know if you've heard about this. Organized by Frank Finelli, who is raising a whole bunch of funds for out-of-work touring crews. Yeah. So if you don't know about that, and if anyone's listening doesn't know about that, go and help raise some funds for all of the out-of-work touring crews. He's doing crazy stuff. He's raised, I believe, probably over $80,000 in the past.
That's amazing.
4 months at this point. So huge shout out to For the Nomads. You can go to forthenomads.org, everyone, and help out all the out-of-work touring crew, because there would be no tours without all the crew.
Yeah, big time.
But absolutely, your album could be the soundtrack to the madness that's going on. There's just so much going on with it. I'm super interested to hear where you came from. So, classic Vox and Hops question at this point is, tell me the soundtrack of your youth. When you were growing up in your parents' house, what music was playing? When you were not in control of the music, what music did your parents or your guardians listen to?
Yeah, that's pretty good. It was a good variety, and it's like stuff that I feel like, as the art should have it, I feel like it's things that I've come to appreciate more as I've gotten older and stuff. But my dad definitely was the classic, he would always be fixing stuff around the house. I grew up in an old farmhouse in Maine and stuff, and there was pretty much always something that needed doing. And he would always have like classic rock blasting. It was he was a huge Rush fan. He was a home drummer and stuff. I mean, still is. So yeah, just, you got the air drums to the Neil Peart solos, and and then he listened to a good amount of blues and things like that. Definitely had my exposure to rock pretty young, and was a big fan of that too. But I mean, everything from bluegrass and rootsy stuff too. Not much country, which is rare for the area that I grew up in Maine. But I feel thankful for that.
Yeah, the album might have sounded different.
Yeah, exactly. But then once I could get my hands on my own music, I mean, it was another classic situation, but it literally was my buddy who grew up down the road, his older brother, he had the cool older brother, he was in high school, we were in grade school, he drove a Corvette, and he played Metallica all the time, super loud. And so it was we would get the CDs from him, and then we would try and play it and stuff, and it just went from there. My buddy would come back from visiting his cousins for the weekend and be I learned another riff, and then we'd play, so just be sitting there learning all of the parts, and you try and keep it true to form. You're it's got to be all downstroke. It was I definitely went down the Metallica wormhole very hard when I first started playing guitar, and then probably came around more. I was into solos and things like that, and then came around way more to kind of the less is more sort of vibes, but while absorbing other stuff from folk to modern sort of rootsy country. Listen to a lot of cool kind of solo artists and stuff. That's sort of it eventually clicked. I was wait a minute. I was this is as heavy as heavy metal. These guys are talking about the same things. I was this is pretty brutal in its own way.
It's absolutely true. And less is more, as we get older as musicians, is really a maturity thing.
Oh, for sure.
And crafting a good song without just jamming as many notes into it as possible.
Yeah. Which is also cool too, because appreciating the endurance and stuff, that stuff too, is it's its own art form.
Of course, I love my Beneath the Massacre.
Right,
one track at a time. I love you boys, but it's one track at a time.
Right. It's you're exhausted after it.
Vox and Hops is all about hanging out with my metal friends, talking about their lives, music, and craft beer.
Nice.
What beer do you have on your side there? And then I'll showcase mine here.
Oh, man. All right, this is going to be fun. Maybe first off. There we go.
We timed it up good there.
Yep. I'm actually drinking a hard seltzer that is from a local brewery here called Night Shift. There's a Boston brewery. They're great. They're from right down the road. And I was at the store. I actually saw that they were making a hard seltzer. And I was you know what? I'll try it. My roommate was drinking one yesterday. And so I was this will be great. I'll be on a metal podcast, and I'll be counting calories or watching my weight or something here.
There's less carbs. That's what
That's
helps.
Yeah.
It's carb free.
Yeah, it's pretty tasty. But Night Shift is cool. They make a lot of very good beers too. So I figured I'd support something from them and also grab something I've never had. I got some Pilsners waiting in the fridge that are from another brewery called Oxbow, which is up in Maine, which is really good too. So probably dive into that tomorrow or maybe while we're still on this. I don't know.
Awesome. I, on my side, am drinking Ras L'Bock's. It's their 5th anniversary beer. There's an expression in French, this is Jamais Deux Sans Trois. So this is Jamais Deux Sans Cinq, because it's their 5th year anniversary. It is a triple New England IPA.
Whoa.
To match how fucking heavy you guys are. Yeah, I've been waiting for a good one for this one. And this is
that's awesome.
10% ABV.
Boom. I'm honored.
And I believe it's supposed to be dangerous and delicious. And they got my hop of choice in it for the past few months there. They got the Citra, which I love. And then
awesome.
My hop of the moment is Sabro and Galaxy. And I'm stoked to try it.
Nice.
So cheers.
Cheers, man. Here.
It smells boozy on the nose, but tropical at the same time.
Yeah, 10%. There you go. I might have to drink like 3 or 4 of these things just to keep up. I won't let you down.
It's got a boozy bite, but it's sweet.
Nice.
Dessert, like closer to like a dessert stout than an IPA, but it's still extremely enjoyable and very dangerous. I'm glad that I only have one. I'm glad I have one of them. Huge shout out to Paul-André Maillot, their spokesperson, for hooking me up with some of their brews to share during my interviews. I really appreciate it.
That's awesome.
Cheers. Awesome.
Cheers.
Let's dance into... so you went straight to guitar. Your dad was an air drummer.
Yeah, regular drummer and air drummer.
Was he disappointed that you went to guitar? Was he expecting you to become a drummer?
No, not at all. It wasn't on that level. I mean, like, it's definitely a hobby for him and stuff. I think he was just happy that, we could share music together and stuff, and as growing up and whatnot. So even though we had like differences in tastes, it's like we've definitely come around to each other's musical palettes and stuff. So I don't think he was too disappointed. If he did, he hit it well. But I played guitar like everyone else, and that was my path.
Take me to that first time on stage. Do you remember your first show?
Oh man. Well, it was actually pretty late because, small town Central Maine, they're just not much of a music scene. We didn't even have like a music program at my high school, but my pals and stuff, the performing arts director, she used to let us hang out in like her room and just play music in there because we had no other place to. So like during lunch, we would go there and all like play Metallica together and stuff, and then like go from there back to the classes and whatnot. So she was pretty rad. Shout out to Midge Merrill. There's a throwback. But yeah, I really didn't get to like play in a full-on band until I had moved to Boston, which was one of the things that drew me here too. And I played I formed a post-rock band with some friends in college, which just kind of naturally went that way because it was like, well, I don't want to sing. And then I just kind of kept it that way. But that was my first show was definitely around the city somewhere, either All Asia, O'Brien's, or Great Scott. And I don't remember tons from it. I just remember being like, this is, regardless of how terrible it may or may not have been, it felt great.
Something special about...
Yeah, and just the Boston scene is cool. From the second that I moved to Boston, it was like I was totally drawn into it. It's pretty welcoming. It's a classic, like everyone plays in everyone else's band, and you immediately just know most of the circle because it's like, oh, that's my roommate's drummer's brother or something, and you just kind of sucked right into it pretty quickly, which was cool. I came from middle of nowhere, Maine, and just wanted to go somewhere that had more stuff going on. And I feel like the Boston music scene was like, come on in.
It's always frustrating. I'm very lucky being so close to Montreal. I immediately hopped from a hometown band into a Montreal band, it was so easy. I can imagine it'd be very frustrating coming from a small town where you only have select people you can choose to play with, and they might not necessarily have your vibe, or they might not be up to your caliber, that you might start off beneath them, but you just are more passionate about it, and then you surpass them. I can imagine that would be frustrating.
Yeah, I remember it's definitely, the pickings were pretty slim. It was literally, my friend Sean started playing drums because it was like, well, we had a friend who sang. We had another friend who was like, I play guitar, but I think I can borrow a bass. And then our friend Sean was like, well, I guess I have to play the drums. So then he learned the drums so that we could at least kind of like play as a band, which was a very rough term for what, we were doing at the time. But yeah, it definitely was that. And then the second I moved to Boston, it was just like, I felt like what I'd always been missing. I mean, that's rad that you got it to go to Montreal too. I mean, I feel like the Montreal scene has always been, it's just on the map. Like for the globe, it's like one of the best like heavy scenes.
We're up there. I get asked the question all the time, why? I don't have the answer. A sense of competition, something in the cold weather. I don't know.
Totally.
A sense of community, a passion, a camaraderie where it becomes, as you mentioned, everyone's in everyone else's bands, especially as we get older.
Yeah, for sure.
The true people stick around.
Yeah, yep.
Let's move into Lesser Glow. You got me hooked on when Ruined came out in 2018.
Oh, nice, thank you.
Pelagic, and it's through Pelagic because I really, really like Pelagic Records, and I follow the record label, so I was going through their catalog, and anything that ever comes out I always check out, and I really, really enjoy that. So how excited were you guys? Was that like a label that you guys wanted to be a part of, or did it just sort of happen?
Yeah, big time. I mean, it is kind of both, because it happened pretty quick in the magic of just right place, right time with stuff. But it was awesomely natural, and still at the same time, it's like massive shout out to Pelagic and Robin and the whole team. They're great, and I feel extremely honored that they added us to their family, because I feel like it's a great fit. The short and sweet story of that was basically just Andrew, our other guitar player. He was on tour in Europe with another band called Arms and Sleepers, which is a band from Boston that's like instrumental, kind of chill, sort of post-rocky, sort of electronic. And I was supposed to do a tour with them, playing guitars and keys and stuff, and I ended up accepting another tour in the States. I couldn't do it. But Andrew had come on board actually as a drummer. Like, he's a drummer by trade, and a fucking incredible one too. And so he was going to Europe to do that. He played a festival where some of the Pelagic bands were there, as well as the label. And there was a common connection between Arms and Sleepers, the main guy, Mirza. He, I think, knew someone that was there and just kind of introduced Andrew and was like, oh, hey, you should hear this guy's other band. It's pretty cool, and I think it would be a good fit. And I remember he was like, yeah, cool, what do you got? And like actually had the conversation. Like, wasn't just like, yeah, cool, kid, like send me your tapes and give him a fake number or something, It was just like, it sounded like it was an actual conversation that went pretty quick and natural. Andrew sent the music, and then we were all chatting just online and stuff. And then we heard back, like, I think it was 48 hours later. And
wow.
He was like, this is great, let's talk. And then we were looking at a record contract like in less than a week.
Wow, that's awesome.
So it was like really cool. And I think we had just finished Ruined. So we're lucky enough to have Alec and Andrew in the band that are two producers as well. They work at two different studios, like fantastic engineers. So we already had, I think, most of the music recorded at that point. I can't quite remember the timeline, but it's pretty much like we had stuff ready to go. And then so they heard it, and then it kind of was just supernatural. We were like, great, let's do it. And kind of put everything together super fast. So the momentum of since forming the band to kind of how some of that process worked was, I think, the most natural of any bands that any of us have had as an experience.
Yeah, the best connections to any labels or most opportunities in life is A, when it's just organically happens, and when you are vetted by someone.
Yeah, big time. I mean, it was great to have the common connection, but it was like very no bullshit, very quick response. But at the same time, someone like took the time to be sincere and was like, yeah, let me check out what you got. And so they checked it out.
That's badass. How do you guys approach? You guys are all in the industry. I know with Cryptopsy right now at this point, with Flo being in Ultimass, Ollie being in Cattle Decapitation,
yep.
Chris having his studio, the Grid Studios up here in Montreal.
Oh, cool.
It's planning tours can be difficult.
Yeah.
So how did you guys approach that? Is that something that you guys were aware might happen? And have you had that conversation of how things would go down the line?
Big time. It's something that we try and stay on top of pretty actively, actually. I mean, obviously, right now is a bit of a different time as a lot of things are on pause, but we've had that conversation a lot, and we try and just stay very on top of it, very like open with each other on if someone even has like a potential offer, if like what their year's looking like, if it's like financial stuff. Like we definitely do the workshopping of making sure we're all on the same page, because I think all of us have, had which comes with time as you get older, but like the previous experience of just, it's so hard to get everybody in the same boat. I feel like, it's really hard. It's a bunch of different people trying to have a thing. It's almost like a 5-person relationship kind of situation. And I mean, it's fucking amazing. There's nothing else like it, but it does take work sometimes. So we pretty actively have that conversation. And there's been times where it's like, we have an offer, it doesn't work for everybody, and we try and be supportive while trying to like say our parts, and it's not like a perfect formula, but it's like, I think everybody can understand where they come from, because like we all understand the freelance sort of life pretty well, and like what gigs mean on both sides and what it means to play as opposed to work. But like we all want to do it. We like this band. We think it's got good potential. We love playing music together. So we all know that like everyone's made some sort of sacrifice at some point, whether it's a gig or another connection or who knows. Just everybody's done at least something to be like, cool, like let's put the band first because we have this tour coming up or this show or something. So it's a good balance. I mean, it's hard. I'm sure you know it too. It's hard, but we make it work. But we make it work because we actually fucking talk about it. Which is important. That's very good advice right there. Yeah.
Letting things fester, as with any relationship, is the absolute worst. It's especially when you're in a 5-person relationship, because then little teams form because certain people agree with other people's opinions, and then those always come out late at night when you shouldn't be having that conversation.
Right? Yeah, you're like in the van. It's a long drive. You've had a couple rough ones. It's just there's already enough things that can come up. It's like there's no reason. If there's an issue, squash it. Talk about it, get through it
right away. And especially now as my band is involved in so many other projects, we're a 4-piece, so it's a 4-way open relationship. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say ours is open too then.
It adds extra
fluid.
Little problems.
Yeah.
There's other I said on a podcast before, when I watch Ollie on stage with Cattle, it's almost like watching my wife with another man.
Who were you drumming with last weekend? Yeah.
Let's talk about Nullity. Let's dive into this new record. I love it. It's so dark. I love albums that take you on a trip, and this one absolutely does. What did you guys do differently this time around? How did you want to evolve from Ruined?
Yep, that's a really good question. It was something that it's kind of the same, like I was saying with some other stuff. It was like half natural. I mean, everything's been natural with this band, I'd say, but like overall it was something we did talk about, and then something that also just I feel like was the evolution itself of the band. But with this record, we had a couple goals for sure. Like, one was we wanted to spend more time on it. Not just, creating it on the front end, because that itself was like, it just was the amount of time that needed to happen, basically, but we still put a good amount of pressure on. But the recording process itself, we wanted to spend at least a couple more days. We wanted to take a little more time getting sounds, a little more time creating within the studio. We just left a little bit of space of some things that were mostly finished, but we kind of wanted to see what would happen once we got to the studio with it too. We definitely had a plan for everything, and it wasn't like we're just sitting on, endless amounts of time and cash. So you still have to be efficient. You have to be reasonable with, we're not just like hanging out and
taking mushrooms and
and that sounds great.
Floor.
But if you're on the clock too, it's like, well, we don't have the luxury of like Vaxel Rose or something like that. So,
it's not the Chinese democracy.
Right? Exactly. We can't afford to write a Chinese democracy. But no, with this record, we wanted to expand on Ruined as a whole. So that meant like taking the thing that kind of bonded us all together with Ruined, which was kind of like this less is more vibe, this ferocity, but a little bit of like not holding back, but reserving like when you're gonna, hit the punches, or when you're gonna like, basically just, we wanted to spend more time with the dynamics as a writing process, and then also as a recording process. So part of that just happened pretty naturally, since we were a band longer at this point. Everyone was kind of like finding their roles and their contribution even better by the time we were working on this. But we basically were writing this record like before Ruined even came out. Andrew and I had already begun working on like The Great Imitator. So it tagged in really well for us. There's always like a gap of time for the public and stuff, but for us, the writing process almost never stopped. We just kind of kept going and kept going. So it kind of naturally pushed, but yeah, we just wanted to spend a little more time on everything and kind of push ourselves a little more on stretching songs out a bit, but not being boring or too repetitive. We didn't say like it has to be this much, like this length of time or these amount of repeats, but just consciously, these were all things that we kind of wanted to sort of, for our next record, make happen.
That's cool, and it comes from playing,
Oh, big time.
When you get out there and you've toured Ruin or you've played Ruin live tracks, you feel what works and what you want to expand upon.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It definitely came from, we played as a band and kept playing, and then this record was coming out of that.
Are you a band that jams when you write, or are you a band that sits in front of a computer to write?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. A lot of our ideas, traditionally speaking, usually will start with something that Andrew comes up with, because the way that he writes is like, being a drummer, he'll have not only a riff, but like he has like song structure and like drum parts in mind when he writes, which is great. So like he will sit down and like just pump out like a structure with like some riffs or some drum parts and things like that, and then like send it out, and then that kind of gets, the juices flowing sort of thing. It's great for me because like I'm not great at like I hear parts, but I can't like sit down and like program out a drum part and be like, these are the ideas that I'm thinking. But he's, tech savvy and naturally a drummer. So like the way that he feels out song forms is really helpful for me to write. But I'd still say like most of the magic at that point, it's not like we then send everything out back and forth and then there's the song. It's like that thing that we started to hear, we meet up in person and sometimes we'll just start without even saying anything and either play something brand new. Usually if I have a riff, I'll just start playing it at the beginning of practice. And if I see people's eyebrows raise, and we'll keep going. If nobody's really looking, then we'll kind of just fall into working on something else. So like for me, I usually will bring something just right in person, and then kind of go from there. So I'd say it's a good balance of both, but it is extremely helpful to have some people like Andrew and Alec that are both tech savvy enough where they can track stuff at home and send it out, and it feels like even when we're not in the same room together, like we're creating, we're progressing, we're not sitting around.
Which is very important during these times.
Dude, absolutely. I've actually started to go down the wormhole of programming some drum stuff just so I can get some forms down for some ideas that I've been trying to track, but I'm like, I need it to be heavier. We're a very percussive band. We actually have three drummers in the band, so...
The mindset's there.
Yeah, the mindset is there. And I'm not one of them, so... But I feel stuff like a drummer.
What would be a dream tour, the perfect lineup that you believe would showcase Lesser Glow to the world appropriately?
Holy smokes. Well, I'll just get my complete bias out of the way and say that I would probably be complete if we were just direct support for Meshuggah. Because, well, maybe not direct support, maybe opener, because I feel like direct support, it would just... That sounds like one of the toughest gigs in the world. If you're like, all right, well now here's the actually heavy band.
You'd have to step up your light game, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that too. We got to get a cousin to program all our stuff. No, I'd say, that's up there, but we borrow from a lot of stuff. I would love to do some tours with, people like Chelsea Wolfe or something that's like more atmospheric, drawn out, moody.
Chelsea Wolfe. Love
it. Not totally shameless plug, but Alec, our singer, is her front of house engineer too. So it's like there's that connection there. So that's
so cool.
That's why I'm throwing it out there. I hope she listens and is like, yeah, it's a great idea.
Me too, Chelsea. I want to interview you.
No, we have a pretty eclectic mix of tastes, and I would love to be a part of an eclectic tour. Like, not something super extreme, but really something, it could be something that was like, there's a Cryptopsy in there, there's a Chelsea Wolfe in there, there's a Lesser Glow, and then maybe like a Converge or something, like something more hardcore. Like, I think we borrow from enough things that it would be cool to be a part of a tour that kind of is little snippets of all those things. I also have favorite bands and things too. Like, I'd love to do a tour with like Yautja. I'd love to do a tour with Black Breath if those guys ever came back and toured. I'd love to do a tour with the Bloodbath guys. There's a lot of good music out there. It's tough to kind of pigeonhole it, but I think something that would be sort of eclectic, but like brings in people that are different fans of different genres and kind of leave with something new would be like an ideal tour.
That would be rad. I'd also like to see you guys with like Neurosis.
Oh, dude, oh my God, I'd be honored.
I think that would work a lot. Let's dance back into craft beer.
Sure.
If you guys could make a craft beer, team up with a brewery to make a Lesser Glow brew, what would it be called? And what style would it be?
This is a fantastic question, because we might be able to do this. We actually were having talks of doing this, and it was probably going to happen right before coronavirus struck the world. I don't think it's anything that's like totally hidden, and I hope it still happens, so I think I can talk about it too. But there's a local brewery called Up Brewing. That's awesome. If you haven't had them, definitely check them out. They make very cool beer. Some of the songs on this record we had Bone Up Brewing in our system when we recorded them, so there's that in there. Actually, the guy who took the photos of our record, the cover of Nullity, if you look at that, and then the artwork inside and on the back, that's a good friend of ours, Matt Darcy, who's an incredible photographer. And he also works for this company, Bone Up Brewing. He just started pouring beers there, but then they found out that he does photo work and things like that. So he's kind of like one of their like social media guy, I think.
There you go. He got a promotion right there.
Yeah, dude, big time. He's the man. He kind of put the wheels in motion for that. And right before this kind of all halted for a bit, that was a conversation that we were having. So we were starting to talk about what kind of beer would you like to do? Maybe what would it be called? I think if it came out during the winter, I would want to do something that would be like a stout or a porter, something sludgy and heavy and you know, call it like slow and low or something like that.
Yes.
You know, something that just kind of fit the genre, but also like the taste of the thing. If it was during the warmer weather, I mean, I'm a bit biased. I love IPAs, and especially like New England IPAs and stuff, but I think it'd be cool to do something like a Pils.
Pilsners are back hard. Everyone's
I love a Pils.
Everyone's all over their lagers now, so don't worry.
Yeah, I love the traditional. Just something, I feel like it's a beer that got overlooked for a while, but if you can actually make a good Pils, then I feel like you probably make a lot of good beers. But man, I don't know what I would call it otherwise. Like, try to think of something from the album. Oh, you could call it like the Great Filtered Beer.
The Great Pilsen.
Oh yeah, the Great Pilsen. Yeah, that's better already. We'll go with that. You'll get 10% once we put that up.
Just give me a case.
Done.
But, one last question. What is your hangover cure?
My hangover cure. I like making greasy breakfasts. Usually home fries, bacon, eggs, English muffin, put it all into like a big sandwich. Take a bite out of it, it's like spilling all over your face. So you probably have no idea how terrible and gross you even look when you're eating it. And then by the end of it, you're probably good to go.
Benji, it's amazing. Thank you so much for taking some time, sitting down with me, drinking a hard seltzer.
Have me back next time, and I'll drink like a 12% beer. I promise.
Yes, you come through Montreal, I come through Boston. Let's hook up. Let's drink some beer together.
Anytime, man.
Everyone, go listen to Nullity out on Pelagic Records from Lesser Glow. It is a fucking rager of an album, and I hope that everyone listens to it, and I hope that big things come your way because I love what you guys are doing. So cheers, massive thanks.
Cheers. Thanks so much, man. Hopefully we'll get to tour together sometime. Who knows?
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right to the end. I had a great time with Benji. I love just connecting with someone that I haven't met before and immediately hitting it off. This was one of those cases. I can't wait to meet up face to face with Benji and share some brews, share some more chats. As I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of their new record, Nullity, which came out via Pelagic Records. You should check it out if you haven't. It's an absolute banger of a record. This coming Thursday is another Vox&Hops Thirsty Thursday virtual hang. Last week's was amazing. I had so much fun having Flo Mounier, my brother, and the drummer of Cryptopsy and Ultimass as my co-host. We had a great time, and I thank everyone that came. This coming Thursday, super stoked to have my bassist of Cryptopsy, Mr. Olivier Pinard. He also plays for Cattle Decapitation and Vengeful. It's going to be a good night. Ollie's always fun, and maybe even Elo will show up, and that would be really fun. So this coming Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The link is available in the description of this podcast, and I will make some social media posts about it. It is a new link this week because I've changed it since last week. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. I have one more episode coming at you. It will be dropping on Friday, but until then, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox&Hops heads.